a person or people cannot afford not to be desperate when they are under desperation. Uh, but it is necessary to be cautious, even under desperation. As the Yoruba people say, taban sunkún a máa ríran, that when a person is weeping, he or she can still see through. And so, desperation is bound to happen. But what is done under desperation is important, and one should be cautious of that. Goodluck Ebele Asikwe Jonathan was desperate to succeed his late boss, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, to whom he was vice president, who died in 2010 before completing his first term in 2011. In that kind of situation, what is usually done among humane persons would have been to allow Yar'Adua's Northwest to produce a successor. In some countries, they will even make his wife to become the president, to console the family for the loss. But here is somebody who took advantage of a dead person to orchestrate his own emergence as Nigeria's president, coming from the south rather than from the north, let alone northwest, where Yar'Adua hailed from. Desperation. And having become the president in 2011, Jonathan's emergence created crisis in the northwest, compounding the war against the Boko Haram Muslim community imposed on Nigeria by Yar'Adua. And Jonathan set up a reconciliation committee headed by Sheikh, I've forgotten the name of the Sheikh now. But Jonathan refused to implement the recommendations of the committee for reconciliation. And desperately, he plunged the country into perpetuating the war against the Boko Haram Muslim community, compounded by the crisis he created from imposing himself as Nigeria's president. Of course, he had the backing of some key Nigerians, including the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, who declared Operation Totality support for the presidential aspiration of Goodluck Jonathan. People like that from all over the country. Without paying attention to the crisis. And so Jonathan squandered this entire 4 years waging war on the Boko Haram Muslim community, squandering human lives and economic resources of Nigeria with wanton abandon. As I said, he ignored the reconciliation committee that he himself, the recommendations of the reconciliation committee, which he himself set up. He put aside the recommendations. And even when the Boko Haram Muslim community was ready for a dialogue for peace in 2012, well, of course, the Boko Haram Muslim community said it was ready to participate in dialogue for peace if the panel will include the Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammadu Saad Abubakar III, and from Sokoto, of course, and Aminu Tambuwa, the then Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives, also from Sokoto. And the third person is also from the northwest, Katsina State. Muhammadu Buhari, a former military head of state. The three of them from the northwest, even though the war is in the northeast, to tell us that the Fulani Muslim imperialists of the northwest are responsible for the war going on in the northeast, because all the three persons mentioned by the Boko Haram Muslim community are from the northwest. Two of them from Sokoto, the other one from Katsina. You know, and you can see that if the president doesn't come from Sokoto, like Shehu Shagari, he will come from Katsina. We have had two presidents from Katsina State since 1999. Just between 1999 and now, two presidents from Katsina State. Sheikh Umaru Musa Yar'Adua and Muhammadu Buhari. You see it? Yet, crisis. Brutal crisis. At any rate, the Sultan declined, Aminu Tambuwa declined, and Muhammadu Buhari declined. The three of them, meaning a conspiracy, and supported by the presidency of Goodluck Jonathan, who immediately arrested those who are going to represent Boko Haram in the panel. He arrested them. That's the level of desperation of Goodluck Jonathan. Worse than that, he sold the war to the Christian Association of Nigeria to adopt the war against to be against Christians as against Muslims, leading to Christian Association of Nigeria leaders pouring invectives on the Boko Haram Muslim community, which provoked the Boko Haram Muslim community to be bombing churches in those days, until I wrote an open letter to the Boko Haram, calling their attention to the devilish politics of Jonathan. Now, the war was consuming human lives and the economic resources of Nigeria brutally for 4 years. And so Nigerians were desperate to replace Jonathan in 2015. In their desperation, Nigerians also did not pay attention to the campaign promise of Muhammadu Buhari to defeat Boko Haram in 6 weeks. What Jonathan promised to do in 6 months in December 2011 and failed to do in 4 years. As you can see, Muhammadu Buhari, who promised to defeat Boko Haram in 6 weeks, was unable to do it in 8 years. And notwithstanding, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has continued. Why? Because he was a crony of Muhammadu Buhari, supporting all his actions, all his brutal actions, including adding herdsmen terrorism to the brutal war against the Boko Haram Muslim community. And so because he didn't see anything wrong with what Muhammadu Buhari did, like Muhammadu Buhari, he doubles himself as Nigeria's petroleum minister. And to add his own originality of desperation and corruption, Tinubu declared the non-existent fuel subsidy gone and all other subsidies gone, leaving Nigerians with nothing to enjoy as a people blessed with oil in their soil. So, summarily, desperation led Goodluck Jonathan to orchestrate his own emergence as Nigeria's president without consideration for the crisis that it brought, the brutalities of the war against the Boko Haram Muslim community, which he perpetrated for 4 years, brutally. Turning down the recommendation of the reconciliation committee that he set up. And even when the Boko Haram Muslim community succeeded in abducting about 300 Chibok secondary school girls, which should have been a reason for dialoguing with the Boko Haram Muslim community for peace, Jonathan rather sacrificed about 300 girls to the abduction. Throughout his presidency, the girls were lost, about 300. But that is just a tip of the iceberg. You want to count how many people were killed as students, as farmers, as soldiers, as police. Oh my God. Even vigilantes, they put everything Nigeria had was put into that war, and yet 4 brutal years. And because Nigerians were not cautious, when Muhammadu Buhari promised to defeat Boko Haram in 6 weeks, under desperation, Nigerians fell for the so-called All Progressives Congress. I didn't, because the moment I saw the poster, I will defeat Boko Haram, I started weeping. That's the truth of the matter. So you will face desperation, but what you do under desperation is what matters. Under desperation, they didn't see what was wrong with it. And on his way out, Muhammadu Buhari imposed on Nigerians one of his cronies, who he was sure to perpetuate the war against Boko Haram, herdsmen terrorism, and corruption, doubling himself as Nigeria's petroleum minister like Buhari and so on, and then all subsidies are gone. What can be more brutal? And some people are justifying it as economic reform. Oh my God, conscience, fear of God, where is it? What we can see is Islam and Christianity all over the place, everywhere, on radio, on television, in the social media, everywhere. We can see Christianity and Islam. We can see consideration for neighbor. And now, to conclude, let us dovetail to Peter Obi saying that he's not desperate to become Nigeria's president. Fine. But Nigeria is desperate to have change, positive change, and they have reason to be desperate because fuel subsidy is gone, all other subsidies are gone. Workers are paid less than living wage. Nigeria is being sunk in debt, worse than those who did not declare fuel subsidy and other subsidies gone. So Nigeria is desperate. But more importantly, what led to Peter Obi saying that he's not desperate to become Nigeria's president? That is even more important. What led to that statement is very important. You see it? Because if I say I'm not desperate, there must be a reason why I say it, or a context. What is the context of Peter Obi saying that he's not desperate? And again, if Peter Obi says that where a person comes from does not matter but competence, then that means that Nigeria's federal character policy has no meaning to Peter Obi. Political order, political equity and justice have no meaning. That's what it means. So we need to examine the brains of those who want to lead us. Because when Muhammadu Buhari said he would defeat Boko Haram in 6 weeks, Nigerians will have known that this one is not coming to develop Nigeria, but to continue the war started by Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, perpetuated by Goodluck Jonathan in his 4 brutal years. And so, because Nigerians were not cautious in their desperation to replace Jonathan, they fell for the so-called All Progressives Congress, ignoring I will defeat Boko Haram. And they did do it in 8 years, or rather compounded the problem with herdsmen terrorism and his own personal corruption of being Nigeria's president and petroleum minister, leading to his imposing Tinubu on Nigeria, who never saw anything wrong with what he was doing, and even vowed to continue what Yar'Adua, Jonathan, and Buhari did. And worse than that, all subsidies are gone, leaving Nigerians with nothing to enjoy, despite having oil wealth. But Peter Obi, why did he say he is not desperate to become Nigeria's president when Nigerians are desperate to have change because of the prevailing situation? Why did he say it? This is what I'm asking. Desperation is natural in life, but what do you do under desperation? Desperation is what matters. And coupled with that, Peter Obi saying where a person comes from does not matter. So issue of equity, justice, political order, political balance don't matter. Nigeria's federal character policy that says that no part of Nigeria must be marginalized don't matter. Or what? So that's why I say we need to examine the brains. We need to be cautious under desperation and pay attention to certain things. If Nigerians pay attention to I will defeat Boko Haram, they will have known that this one is not coming to develop Nigeria. And also, when Tinubu said he will continue the good works of Muhammadu Buhari, and what good works of Muhammad? Well, okay, accepted. Tinubu was imposed on Nigeria by Muhammadu Buhari, fine. But now this is another person saying that where you come from doesn't matter. All that matters is competence. So if it is a Sokoto man that is always competent, he should continue to rule the rest of Nigeria, not minding that, not considering ethnic pride, and that no ethnic group has monopoly of competent people. But my suspicion is that he is dancing to the tune of Atiku Abubakar, who want to become Nigeria's president by all means, coming from the north, after the 8 years of somebody from the north. That is my suspicion, because Peter Obi could have been bought. No man is to be trusted.